Welcome back to SlashBack Cinema, the podcast that serves up the best of 70s and 80s horror, no matter how weird, gross, or completely unhinged. I'm Shawnee.
And I'm Ryan. Today we're talking about the insane debut film from a young, ambitious, and possibly deranged Peter Jackson, 1987's Bad Taste, a movie where aliens invade Earth not to conquer humanity, but to turn us into fast food.
Ryan, this one has it all. Homemade gore, insane stunts, questionable prosthetics, and Peter Jackson playing two characters at once. And somehow after making this, they still let him direct Lord of the Rings, which honestly may be the most shocking part of all.
Does Bad Taste still serve up the intergalactic fast food goods? Or is it a low-budget, indigestible mess? That's what we're here to find out on today's episode.
This movie actually is the lowest budget, I think, of any movie we talked about. Bad Taste came in like sub $35,000.
I think even like 25, but then they did get a grant from whatever that New Zealand filmmaking fund was. But yeah, of his own money. Yeah, over 4 years, shot on weekends.
Yes, he shot this movie, yes, on Sundays for 4 years. God, what a remarkable investment in himself. You want to do a bigger overview of what this is all about?
This small town basically disappears and is replaced by aliens, and they begin to investigate what's going on and essentially find out that the aliens are here to harvest us for their intergalactic food chain. And so it follows these agents trying to infiltrate the alien house and get to the bottom of what's going on, and then the chaos unfolds from there.
I suppose you're wondering why you're soaking in Reggie-delivered secret herbs and spices. Tomorrow we're having you for lunch.
And I have a memory of this movie, Ryan, which is the grossest scene in the whole movie. You know what I'm going to say? It's the scene where one of the aliens vomits up what looks like green oatmeal into a bowl, and then he passes it around and all the other aliens have to eat it. I remembered nothing about this movie but that one scene. And it's like an hour into the movie, so I had seen this entire movie and nothing in it stuck out to me except for that one thing. But then while watching it, a second thing appeared, and I was like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yes, I do remember this. There's one character who's a human being who gets like a serious head injury, and so there's like a flap on the back of his head where his brain starts leaking out. And the way he deals with that in this $25,000 entertainment is he just grabs brains and then pushes them back into his head and then closes the flap with like a belt or a hat and then keeps going on. At one point, he finds like some other viscera or brain and he just shoves that in there. And he's like slowly losing his mind. I did not remember that I remembered that until it happened in this movie. So the only reason I thought of this movie was because I had this memory of you playing it for me in the 80s. Did you remember this movie at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so ridiculous. What you just described, both of those scenes are absolutely disgusting, but absolutely hilarious. We should just note that the character you're talking about with the brain injury, Derek, who falls off the cliff, lands on the rocks, you assume he's dead. Well, no, he wakes up. Yeah. That is played by Peter Jackson.
Oh, wait, no, is he the guy with the brain? I thought it was a different guy whose brain
he plays
leaking.
Two characters in this movie, and I did not realize that until later, because like he plays one of the like wacky alien creatures, and you're like, that's clearly Peter Jackson. This character, what really struck me is I felt like the cast gave off knockoff American actor vibes. Like the character Derek that Peter Jackson was playing reminded me of Rick Moranis. Like he just plays this wacky, goofy, comical character. And then one of the other agents, who's the tough guy, I think his name was Frank, is played by Mike Minette. He comes across as this Kiwi knockoff Patrick Swayze character. Like it was just kind of silly. They felt like almost like caricatures, but just really over the top. So I did remember the two scenes you described, plus kind of how it all unfolds at the end of the movie with Lord Crumb and the whole house and all that.
The rest of the movie I was really surprised by because the box art of the movie or the poster of the movie is this very rubbery alien creature giving like the middle finger. And so I thought it was going to have these aliens. But again, this is a 90-minute movie. And I'd say for the first hour and 5 minutes, there's no aliens that you see at all. There's just the aliens just take on the form of just regular people because again, budget limitations might have made this hard. They all wear blue shirts, which is helpful, but they're just like regular guys, most of whom can like speak English okay, but then a couple of them seem to have like some kind of brain damage or this inability to speak. It's just like kind of people, they're fighting with machetes or hammers or guns.
Uzis, and they're like it's definitely like that first 3/4 of the movie felt like you're watching an episode of the A-Team or something.
Yes, yeah.
With some extra brains thrown in there for good measure.
Gotcha!
And the other thing about this movie is, again, it's called Bad Taste. The two scenes I described are absolutely disgusting. But while watching it again, I actually thought there's fewer scenes that are really gross than I thought were in the movie. How did you even discover it? Did you just randomly come across it? Do you remember?
I think somebody had recommended it, and for those that were into these B movie schlocky horror films that are actually kind of funny, these were well known in those circles.
Last week we were talking about demons, and I was describing how some scenes you can't tell where people are in relation to other people. There's no like setup shots where you can understand exactly where they are. There's just random confusion that happens, and you can tell, even though Peter Jackson has no film training, that he is a good filmmaker from the very beginning. The movie is surprisingly clear in terms of what is happening, how the action is playing out, who's winning, who's losing, how far away people are from each other. Like he really seems to know where to put a camera and how to communicate action. It's surprisingly polished for such a cheap movie.
It's pretty cohesive given that they did shoot it over 4 years, and they talked about some of the behind the scenes stuff of like actors. Like I think the guy that played Lord Crumb actually died and they had to overdub. There was another character that got divorced and remarried and was a born again Christian, and he couldn't do he said it's against his newfound faith, so he left the movie but came back. There were weekends where he'd be shooting and no one would show up, so Peter Jackson started casting himself as one of the actors because he knew he would show up, and he was making a lot of these props like the alien costumes in his mom's oven, like, and his parents were feeding the crew, like, so a lot of love went into this movie. But given that kind of range of 4 years, like it is surprising that it's as cohesive as you just described. Because you can follow it. There's no point where you're like, "What's going on?" Like it's much more put together and well constructed than the chaos of demons.
I feel like if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, you could see a little bit of like where Peter Jackson's going to go. He knows how to film New Zealand. He like lives in such a cool place that he takes a lot of care to set up scenes that are like on these beautiful bluffs and in the woods. He makes a lot of use out of the beautiful local environment he has available to him. It's impressive. You got some favorite scenes?
I think you checked the box on the two standout scenes with the alien vomit and Derek's brain injury there. But the other one, it's so ridiculous, is and again, spoiler alert, you get to the end of the film and basically Lord Crumb's trying to get away from the team that's trying to take him down, and the house that they've been shacked up in and doing their secret alien meetings and collecting all the meat from the humans was in this house. Well, it turns out it's actually a spaceship.
Oh, yes. Yeah, let's talk about it. So I was actually pretty impressed. I feel like the movie saved, I don't know, $15,000 out of its budget for like the last 20 minutes when the people turn into these rubber alien, like Weta
with giant
masks.
butts. The alien butts were just cracking me up.
Yeah, they've got these big guts and big butts, clearly like rubber mask creatures. And then, yeah, they're in a house. And some of the effects, I actually wasn't sure how they pulled this off. Like some of the explosions.
Rocket launchers.
Yeah. I Googled, how did they do the rocket launcher thing? And I can't find any explanation for it. I can't believe they actually had a rocket launcher shoot into a house. But damn, it sure does look like they did. So they blow up a car at one point, and it is a significant explosion.
Tonight, good one.
Yeah, and then the exciting climax of the movie, the house, it becomes a spaceship and launches. I'm assuming it was like a little model, but it doesn't look that way. It looks really good.
Right, it's taken off, the whole house shaking, it's coming off the foundation. Lord Crumb's in his like rig navigating this whole thing. And then meanwhile, Derek, the guy who's had the brain injury, has managed to get onto the house and seems determined to take him out. And he's got a chainsaw, which just... Oh my God.
Which you've pointed this out before. Chainsaws were one of the most beloved weapons of these horror movies, right? There, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then the Sam Raimi chainsaws. I feel like there's a love of chainsaw in the 80s that does not carry forth in future decades.
Intersection of power tools.
Yeah. Peter Jackson is on this house with a chainsaw. And then do you want to describe, because this is like, I think the gold standard death scene in this movie is huge.
He basically takes the chainsaw and proceeds to go into Lord Crumb, the alien body, with the chainsaw in a way that like he basically explodes through him.
But he starts from the head.
Yes.
Like he jumps down onto him. And so the chainsaw goes like through the head. And then Peter Jackson's body also comes through and then down the bottom. So then he climbs out. What you're picturing in your head when we describe this is not what it looks like on screen. The movie communicates the action without like, clearly showing what we're describing. And that's part of what I was saying before is Peter Jackson's able to communicate action. It's like a magic trick where you think you're seeing it, but you're really not.
And then he comes out and he's covered in all the gore and he's like, I'm born again.
Yes. And then the big twist is he then puts on the guy, he because he like hollows the alien out, there's still like a skin left. And so Peter Jackson's character wraps himself in the skin with his trusty chainsaw, and then the house ship is flying to a planet where he's
gonna take out the home base. Yep.
So that's like, I think, like the standout death scene in this movie. The other thing about the movie that I'll say is I forgot how funny it is. The movie definitely has the energy of like a Warner Brothers cartoon. People are like going through each other or putting on the skin of another character, tossing people off cliffs. They fall down all the rocks and then they just get up and walk away at the end with their brains leaking out the back. It just, the whole movie has like this kind of cartoon logic. And I was actually pretty impressed he's able to do a live action movie that has some of that wacky 70s Warner Brothers cartoon mayhem.
Yeah, it did have that mania to it. A couple other notes on the film. The one thing that I came across was if you see the cover art for this film, it's Rubber Alien we've been talking about, and he's popping the finger. Apparently the U.S. release, because that was considered too offensive, they supplied another finger that the video store could put on, so it looked like the alien was given the peace sign. And then later releases, they did a lenticular version, which is when you can kind of shift your view and it like changes the image. It's based on the angle that you're viewing. So you had the middle finger or the peace sign. So that was kind of funny.
I give him props for having pride in these early films, because when you think of the guy that makes like King Kong and Lord of the Rings, and that he's such a huge Hollywood director, the fact that he's even willing to acknowledge that he made these movies early in his career, props to him for being like proud of his early work, because it got him where he is today.
It's his education, although like we said, he was sort of self-trained DIY, but then he will still pepper in stuff that you're just like, I cannot believe. Like there's another scene where like they come upon the one guy and he's eating somebody's brains with a spoon, and you're just like, okay, Peter Jackson.
And the amount of like blood, which I think he said was just pancake syrup that was colored red. I mean, there's a lot of goo in this movie.
Yep.
There's an alien creature that gets hit by a car and is cut in half, but it's clearly like at that point a guy sitting in a hole. So you see the top of his body moving around. It's like kind of Monty Python-esque. That's another
that's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
Where these things are like kind of gruesome looking, but they're also kind of hilarious and silly. Props to little Petey Jackson for pulling this off. You want to do stabby scores?
So it is hilarious, and I think what you said, Monty Python vibes, and there's a lot of comedy. The DIY stuff is really good, and the last act of this movie is just highly entertaining. And I really enjoyed it. And there's moments throughout the film that really get your attention, but I had kind of forgotten what a long slog it was to get to the alien part with, just people wearing blue shirts and running around. So it drags a little bit, I would say, in the first half of the movie, although it does have these moments of just insane grotesqueness. So that being said, coming back watching it 40 years later, I did enjoy it. I would be really curious to measure this up against Dead Alive. So we'll have to watch that. So I'm going to come in at 3.5 stabs for this one.
Yes, I have all the same thoughts you did, which is that I feel like that whole middle act kind of just takes too long. It has a really funny beginning with scientists and the way they're talking to each other and
the tax collector. Yeah, just kind of some wackiness. Yeah.
Right. But then you're right. The middle of it, it's like, oh, it's just guys shooting at each other with like plastic or wooden guns. That just goes on too long before the aliens show up. But I got it up to 3 stabbies because I got a kick out of like the first 20 minutes and the last 20 minutes, I feel like are the best parts of this movie. And it has such a DIY gung-ho, let's make a movie. It's just very, very charming. But so yeah, this is a 3 stabby movie for me. I'm glad it was made. I'm glad that that became his calling card and he got further in life. But I don't know that it's the best even of his early silly, crazy cartoon movies.
I agree.
Shall we play a game?
So you ready to do a little trivia? So, Ryan, the movie we watched this week is called Bad Taste. So my trivia questions this week are all inspired by Good Taste, that is candy from the 1970s and 1980s.
Well, I should probably be asking you these questions. You are the candy aficionado, so we'll see where this goes.
Yes, I'm going to start you off with an easy one, and I'm not even going to give you options because there's no way a child who lived in the 1970s and 80s can possibly get this wrong. Ryan, there was an urban legend when we were kids that Mikey from the Life cereal commercial was killed eating a 1970s, 1980s candy. What was the sugary combination that we all thought killed Mikey?
Pop Rocks.
And mixed with?
Was it Coke?
It was Coke, yes. Second week in a row, Coca-Cola has come up.
It was a real concern. People were worried about the possible interaction there, sort of like the early Mentos shenanigans.
I do remember thinking this was real. I am puzzled by the fact that why is it Mikey, this character from a Life cereal commercial? How did we pick him as the kid that died?
That's true. Well, it was pre-internet when all this was going down too. So like people could say stuff and there was no way to validate anything. If it wasn't in the Encyclopedia Britannica, there was no way to confirm or deny these allegations of Mikey's death. So
he likes it. Hey, Mikey.
So I'm delighted that you got that one correct. Here's number 2. This one will be multiple choice. Skittles were first introduced in the UK in 1974, and then they were brought to the US in 1979. Over the years, Skittles has introduced many experimental and limited edition flavors. Which one of the flavors below is not a real Skittles flavor? So 3 of these are real things that Skittles has introduced. One of them I just made up. Was it, Ryan, chocolate Skittles, like brownies and s'mores, etc.? Was it mint Skittles, like peppermint and spearmint? Was it confused Skittles, where the color and the flavors all mixed up? Or was it salty Skittles with flavors like potato chip and pretzel? Which one of these was not a real flavor that Skittles introduced ever in the history of this brand?
Well, Skittles is definitely a wacky, playful product and company. So standing out to me is the salty one and then the chocolate one. Although I could see them actually doing the salty because they were like, they're kind of wacky and experimental. So I'm going to go chocolate.
Chocolate was actually real. They sold chocolate Skittles in the U.S. in 2008. It was actually hard for me to make up a Skittle combination. I went to the Wikipedia page, and several of the ones that I was going to make up, they'd actually done.
So what was it then?
They never did salty Skittles. There was no potato chip and pretzel, but they did confused Skittles. They did mint Skittles. They did chocolate Skittles. Sorry, you didn't get that one.
Okay, damn it. All right.
There was no salty Skittles. All right, here's number 3, and I think that this is going to be the last one.
But do you remember the show back in the day, Press Your Luck? And it had, and you'd say no whammy, and the thing would be going around like I'm saying no whammy. Okay, I'm ready for this.
All right, we'll see how we do. This is another one that just take a shot in the dark. I would not have gotten this had I not searched for it. So another hugely popular candy in the 90s was Nerds. Remember that?
Who doesn't love Nerds?
Here's my question: the word nerd was invented by what children's author? Was it Dr. Seuss, Shel Silverstein, Judy Blume, or Maurice Sendak? Which one of them introduced the word nerd into the popular American English lexicon?
Wow, you really are delivering with this final question over and over again. All right, give me the options again here.
All right, so who invented the word nerd? Is it Dr. Seuss, Shel Silverstein, Judy Blume, or Maurice Sendak?
I'm going to go Shel Silverstein.
That was a very good guess, but the actual answer is Dr. Seuss. In 1950, wrote a book called If I Ran a Zoo, in which the narrator claims that he would collect a, quote, Nurgle, Nerd, and Seersucker too for his imaginary zoo. So let's see. I think you only got 1 out of 3 here. You, of course, got Mikey killed by Pop Rocks. You struggled with salty Skittles, which is a flavor that I just invented. And you took a shot at Shel Silverstein, brilliant child's author. But in fact, it was Dr. Seuss that made up the word nerd in the book If I Ran a Zoo, a book that I never even heard of all the Dr. Seuss books. That's not a famous
cue the whammy sound effect here. Like, tough week for me.
That wraps up another trip down memory lane. Hopefully you enjoyed revisiting Bad Taste as much as we did.
Don't forget to follow us on the socials, TikTok, Meta platforms at slashbackcinema.com, and subscribe however you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you dig the show, do leave us a review. It helps people find us and find out about the podcast.
And we want to hear from you. If you've got a favorite memory from the 70s or 80s or a classic horror movie you'd like us to dissect, drop us a line at slashbackcinema.com. Your suggestions keep the conversation alive.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.